The front door of Harry and Deborah Fleur's home was rarely entered or exited. They usually entered or exited through the garage side door or the glass sliding door to the patio. To the right of the front door was the meticulously maintained but rarely used formal living room, and to the left was the hallway leading to the 3 bedrooms, including the spacious master suite and a guest bathroom. None of these details made any sense, however, until late that night when Harry found himself sitting in one of the reclining chairs with his back to the archway that connected the entrance to the living room. If he plucked up the courage to end the failed marriage, he often calculated the losses he might suffer. Their mutual friends would inevitably choose which side to take, the house would cease to exist, alimony would be a burden for years, and his estate would be diminished in legal proceedings. He realized that he should move to the bedroom and pretend to move about there to avoid another confrontation if he was found in the living room. Arguments were commonplace in the house, usually initiated by Deborah, and centered around unwarranted criticism of Harry for trivial matters, made-up reasons, sometimes no reasons at all. As far as Harry was concerned, life lost its value in the constant friction, and he thought it best to resolve conflicts in a timely manner, but the problem was that after 10 years of marriage, new quarrels would inevitably follow soon after. When Harry heard the sound of the freezer door closing, indicating that Deborah was back and that she intended to send him out for the rest of his groceries, he anticipated her habitual demand that he be instructed to do things on a regular basis, demanding not only obedience, but also that he put up with her criticisms from start to finish. If he glanced up, he would have seen her pause on the tiled floor, carefully scanning the corridor for privacy as Harry remained silent, waiting for her to arrive. She felt safe now, though, and she guessed that Harry was busy in the gazebo in the backyard. It wasn't long before Harry heard the faint ringing of Deborah's mobile phone as she dialed the number. She was now just a few feet away from the entrance and not the least bit aware of his presence. 00, he should be back from lunch by now. We're fine for a couple of hours if he's still at his desk. I'll open the back door as usual. See you around 2. Deborah's conversation continued, much to the bewilderment of Harry. 00 as the other replied. Deborah, of course Dad, you know I love you very much. I have to go and see where my son is. Before Deborah's feet retreated towards the glass sliding doors, Harry heard the pop of the flip phone closing as she whistled for him, seemingly unaware of his presence or the tension brewing within him. He reminded himself not to panic unless he was directly threatened, using his knowledge to his advantage and choosing the right moment to act. He averted his gaze as he spoke, heading for the kitchen and the side door. She turned to watch him, and as he passed she noticed the flush on his cheeks. Wear a top hat outside, your face is all red, you won't be able to stand the way you peel off your skin in a few days. Bring the groceries in before you go anywhere and don't linger around all day. Harry discreetly took his mobile phone out of his bag and quickly jotted down the last number dialed before putting it back in his bag. Harry put the groceries away and drove off in his compact pickup truck, but instead of going to the hardware shop like he said he would, he stopped at a local park a few blocks away. He wanted to commit every word to memory to ensure clarity. He even took some notes. The message was clear: his wife was having an affair, and worse, it seemed to be happening under his roof, maybe even in their shared bed, while he was away at work. The realization made him seethe with anger as he knew he had unknowingly financed her betrayal while he was working hard to support her. Questions flashed through his mind as to who she was talking to about her mysterious father, which couldn't possibly be her real father considering the local area code and the fact that her parents lived thousands of miles away in California. Harry's thoughts turned to practicalities as he considered his next move. Her lover would be coming in through the back door on Thursday and would probably walk down the alley. Harry pondered the possibility of ambushing her. But then the question arose: if the lover had come on foot, his car must be parked nearby. What was he to do with his unfaithful wife? The obvious way would be to call the number on Deborah's mobile phone. He could set up a scene, or someone else, perhaps a woman who had inadvertently dialed the number and was trying to get information about the man's identity. But who could make the call? The first person who came to mind was Deborah's closest friend Dorothy. If there was someone else who knew about this, it was probably Dorothy. Deborah's relationship with her sister was very strained, and it was unlikely that she would have known this information because Dorothy had been a friend of Harry and Deborah. Dorothy's husband was John, and despite the age difference between them, they seemed to be very close to each other, and Harry assumed that Dorothy would have told most of the things to John. but will she reveal to John that Deborah is cheating on him? Harry thinks of John as a friend, albeit not a particularly close one, but he believes that John is a decent man and would have told him if he had known about the situation. This role allows him to play golf for free when the crowds are small. Harry has carefully devised his strategy. He can't risk revealing sensitive information as it could inadvertently reach Dorothy and Deborah. He needs to be discreet. John, I have a hypothetical question for you. As they ride in the golf buggy together, accompanied by John assessing the 7th hole, Harry broaches the subject. I guess I'm asking if you and Dorothy share all confidential information that you receive from others, even if that information is shared in confidence. I can assure you that I will not divulge it unless Dorothy specifically requests it. I can assure you I won't divulge it unless Dorothy specifically asks for it, but I won't lie to her if she asks for it. That's my principle, Harry. I'll respect confidentiality, but I won't lie to my wife or my friends. At last year's New Year's Holden party, John and Harry were sitting together discussing the disturbing revelations. Everyone had gathered outside to watch the fireworks display, and Dorothy was indulging in a champagne toast, a rarity. She hears someone trying to open the door, and after stepping out of the bathroom she hears a cacophony of voices coming from the hall. At the end of the corridor are the bedrooms, and she worries that someone needs help. At the end of the corridor she found Deborah and a man pressed against the wall in an inappropriate behavior. Harry listened carefully as John continued to relay Dorothy's account of the incident. Deborah noticed Dorothy's presence and contemptuously gestured for her to leave on her way home. But I thought it necessary to inform you immediately. John pauses briefly before revealing Deborah's explanation to Dorothy. Dorothy knew him well. He was notorious for bullying and was married to a rich man. His wife was a lawyer, so Dorothy asked me to keep it quiet because we didn't want to ruin your marriage over a single incident, but I told her that if you asked me directly, I wouldn't lie to you. It's something that's been bothering me for the past 5 months, and I'm relieved to be here at last, but I'm really sorry. That John admitted his remorse. It was clear from his tone that Deborah had lied to Dorothy, and it wasn't over she'd been with this man. Maybe it was some other man. An hour ago I overheard her on the phone with him, and Harry said it again. His pain was palpable. God, if I'd have known I'd have come to see you. I'm so sorry, Harry. Let's go back to my place and see what Dorothy will say. Maybe she knows something else. And John suggested. His concern for Harry was obvious. After leaving the golf course they drove to Dorothy and John's house. In their respective cars they drove to Dorothy's and John's house. Harry broke the news to his wife and she sat down and burst into tears. I looked up Deborah's phone number. I have the number that she called. Can you call him and pretend that it's a wrong number to try and get his name? Dorothy, who works from home as an editor and has a PhD in English literature and a background in theater, used her impeccable acting skills and proficiency in social engineering to orchestrate her approach to the call. She put her phone on speakerphone mode and dialed the number. Hi, this is Buddy Mitchell. Dorothy blinked in surprise. Sorry for the wrong number. She quickly returned the call and her carefully planned plot collapsed before her eyes. Despite her disappointment, the message was clear. Deborah had not terminated her affair with Mitchell, and as they deliberated on their next move, Mitchell confirms another important piece of information. Harry is still determined to catch Deborah and her paramour at their next appointment on Thursday. I can't afford to hire a detective to follow them, and she may not even see or contact Mitchell until Thursday. With the cost of the divorce looming, I need hard evidence. Harry was quick to voice his concerns. Silence gripped the room as they pondered their options. What if someone close to her, like her best friend, extracts the truth from her? Dorothy suggests you do this. Harry asks in surprise. Guys, never underestimate an enraged woman. I've had enough of her and the way she treats us all. Meanwhile, JN would have converted one of Dorothy's old leather bags into a video camera and quietly packed it inside to capture every word and every expression as they met. By Sunday noon, they expected to have gathered valuable information. Dorothy appealed on the phone. What happened, Dorothy? Are you and John all right? Concerned, Deborah replied. It's not that. Deborah, remember that incident at the New Year's Eve party last year? 00 Let's find a quiet corner to talk at the new coffee shop in the mall, and I'll see you there. Deborah agreed. She looked forward to imparting her knowledge and wisdom to Dorothy, just as her sister and more importantly her father had done for her. She placed 2 chairs away from the table, leaving only one spot for Deborah to sit, making sure the camera angles and audio were optimal. Deborah did a final test in calm air to eliminate the risk of wind noise. Dorothy was ready when Deborah arrived. "Deborah, can you get us some coffee?" When Deborah returned with the drinks, Dorothy surreptitiously activated the on button on the hidden camera to make sure it was recording. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Dorothy began to tell her story. "I never wanted to betray him, but now I'm tempted. I want to ask your opinion because of what happened after the New Year's Eve party. Will I regret it if I go through with it?" "He's past his prime, you're still young and beautiful," encouraged Deborah, her voice full of enthusiasm. "I've always admired your looks, but I've never understood why you're with John." Deborah. Dorothy pressed further. "Darling, I want to sugarcoat it now. At the time I had to put you at ease or risk exposing our secret, but now that you're in a similar situation to me we can share everything. In fact, we'll have some exciting conversations." Deborah admitted. Deborah told the truth. "I'm intrigued, and now I'm contemplating the same path." The gleam in your eyes says it all, and if you're not feeling flushed by now, I bet you will be soon. "Remember, I was wearing that leopard print outfit and Buddy couldn't stop staring at me for the first hour and I returned the favor," Deborah revealed, and while his wife was busy with the trick-or-treaters at the front door and Harry was roasting the fire in the outhouse, we began a conversation full of intrigue and lust. I nodded in agreement. "You know how lively that party is and how spacious the house is to slip away unnoticed with little effort," so I sauntered down the dimly lit corridor and ascended to the landing. When we got upstairs, the hustle and bustle was all downstairs. My mate pulled me in for a wild kiss and then took me into the bathroom, locking the door behind us. "Dorothy, he's great, he gets what he wants, that's what fascinates me. No pretenses, no declarations of love, none of that sentimental crap. We went from Halloween to New Year's Day, we'd probably done Halloween night 20 times, we wanted to do it again, but he was occupied the bathroom, so we found another place. And we were planning to meet next week in my comfy bed." And Deborah said, "Well, that's bold. What about Harry? Don't you feel a little guilty about him?" "Let me tell you what I think of Harry. He's a very practical choice for a husband because I know he'll always be a reliable provider. It's a relief that he hasn't pushed me to have children. He's very obedient and susceptible to my influence. I keep him under my thumb sometimes. I even sniff him when he comes home pretending to check if he smells like perfume so he'll notice my infidelity. Having Harry around is like having a loyal pet. He's very passive and I can do what I want with him. He'll still come back to me. I always know where he is so I never have to worry about him finding out I'm with another man." "So have you ever had another lover?" Dorothy asked me. "Dorothy, I've lost count. The first lover was the first year of our marriage. He didn't even know my real name. We hung out in a hotel room for about 6 months until he got too clingy." "You've got to be careful with young men." Deborah made an offhand remark. "After that I had a couple of brief encounters. He could have come on to me at almost any time. I'd have been the one to pull the strings." "So tell me about your newest conquest. Where did you meet him?" "Where did you meet him?" Dorothy eagerly inquired and began to tell her invented story about her lover Bill. The specifics were irrelevant, but Dorothy's performance was impeccable and convinced Deborah with every word, even prompting her to encourage Dorothy to seize the moment. "Deborah, I can't help but admire how you're always in control of the situation. I'm not sure that I could have handled John as well as you handled Harry." Dorothy confessed. "In the animal kingdom, you have your master's kingdom. You have your masters and then there are others who obey and serve. He hates confrontation, but I love it. I have more endurance and I make sure I always have the upper hand. All you have to do is get into that role and the freedom is yours. Start dating Roya and enjoy every moment. John will still be there. The more you abuse him, the more he'll get into his natural submissive role. That's the way the real world works. You've always been in control. You just haven't taken full advantage of it yet," Deborah assiduously said. Their conversation went on for a long time. Dorothy was eager to retrieve the recording and share it with John, and Harry shared that Dorothy and John had been taken aback by the change in Deborah's demeanor. She wasn't normally as cold in front of others as she had been with Harry. Harry himself was stunned. "Another person we hadn't considered was Kelly Mitchell," Harry pointed out. "What's your opinion of her?" "Dorothy, she must have known about her husband's infidelity. I felt it was my moral obligation to tell her about him." And Deborah, in case she didn't know that I'd only met Kelly briefly at a few gatherings. I had a brief interaction with Kelly at a few parties, and Dorothy recalled that she put on a tough exterior, but inside there was a palpable unhappiness that her husband was a bully. I could try and contact her quietly to test her attitude to her husband's infidelity, to assess whether she will help us or hinder us. You handled the video very well. I'm sure you can handle Kelly Mitchell. Once I hear about Mrs. Mitchell, you're both off the hook. I'm not going to involve you any further. It's probably best that you don't know the details. Harry, you aren't planning anything reckless, Are you? Dorothy asked, cautiously. Reckless things like I've been putting up with for the last 10 years. No, I mean violent things, Dorothy clarified. Harry didn't answer directly. Dorothy took a bold step and dialed Kylie Mitchell. Kylie, this is Dorothy Clark. We crossed paths a few times at Holden's party. Dorothy began. Hi Dorothy, of course I remember you. What are you thinking? Dorothy asked cautiously. Buddy's out running errands and I'm just here reading. Kelly, I'll get right to the point. I'm sorry to tell you such news, but I'm sure you should know that Buddy has been unfaithful to you, but not with me, but with someone I know, and I'm sorry that you have to hear it from me. Dorothy empathetically relayed the news. I forgave him, but I made it clear that if he did it again, I would be done with him. Kelly lamented through her tears. Dorothy comforted her for a few moments and then gently inquired further. Kelly, I know it's not my place to ask, but depending on your decision, I may be able to be of some help, Dorothy, and I really do value your support, and let me assure you that Buddy will never set foot in my bed again. He'd be out on the street with nothing, he'd be dependent on me for everything. Without my financial support he'd be destitute, he wouldn't be able to get a job, his only skill seems to be glamour at social events. I'm glad to hear that you've taken a firm stance, and I can provide you with the evidence that you need, but I'll need your assurance that you'll keep your composure for the next few days, and that you won't let him find out that you're having an agenda with him. Dorothy, having questioned you, I assure you that I will be as calm as a cucumber and he won't suspect a thing until I have solid evidence. Until I have concrete evidence, he won't suspect a thing. Kelly firmly affirmed. Great, can I arrange for some preliminary evidence to be delivered to your office tomorrow? Dorothy proposed and they arranged a meeting, p.m. On Monday, Harry walked into Dorothy's office with a video camera, and after introductions and a handshake, he took his seat. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm your husband's husband, and your husband's involved with this woman here. She is, in her own words, said Harry solemnly, as he placed the video camera on her desk. Although the screen was small, the sound was clear and Harry noticed that Kelly's eyes were brimming with tears as he came round the desk and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. I can imagine how you feel. This is all new to me as I only recently found out about my wife's behavior, but you seem to have been aware of Buddy's behavior for some time. Am I right, Kylie? I'm planning something and I want you to be a part of it. It's going to happen one way or another, so if you choose not to be involved I understand, but if I don't give you that option I don't feel it's right, Harry explained. Harry, he's been terrorizing me for years and I've put up with it time and time again, and there are times when I'm really worried for my safety. I've put up with it. I want to turn the tables and give him a taste of pain, Kelly said firmly. Harry, will your plan involve violence? She asked cautiously. It could be messy. I'm not going to resort to murder, but I'm perfectly sure I'll give your cheating husband a good thrashing. Is that a problem for you? I've never fought him before, no offense, but I don't believe you could fight him in a fair duel, Kelly admitted skeptically. It wouldn't be a fair duel. I'd give him what he deserves, Harry said with confident certainty. Kelly smiled faintly and nodded. Whilst he didn't agree with Deborah's assessment of him, he couldn't deny that there was some truth in her assessment. He didn't see his accommodation as a weakness, but rather an effort to keep the peace in their marriage. Especially when she had described him as her little gay friend, he was determined to show his manhood, and Harry considered confronting Deborah before Thursday's planned confrontation. How would she have reacted if he had presented himself more forcefully? However, he couldn't help but wonder if showing her another side of himself would make her reconsider her behavior during those lonely nights prior to Thursday. Aware of the inherent unpredictability of the situation, he had crafted various strategies in the hope of anticipating every possible outcome, and as hard as he tried, he knew that once Thursday arrived, adaptability would be key. Deborah is usually confident in their relationship, but she finds herself hesitant to engage with Harry's uncharacteristic demeanor, which she suspects is just a momentary thing, perhaps a reaction to the pressures of work, and chooses to observe rather than confront him. Harry immersed himself in physical training at the company gym, his mind filled with anticipation, each session a rehearsal for the upcoming showdown, which strengthened his resolve. In the midst of the uncertainty, one thing was certain, and that was that Thursday would bring clarity to their relationship, for better or for worse. Harry's father and grandfather, both veterans, recount wartime experiences, including receiving a set of brass knuckles from a fallen German soldier after the Battle of Normandy. To Harry, this situation reflects the fact that Deborah's wartime betrayal and her affair with Buddy represent a breach of trust, akin to the insidious tactics of the enemy. Understanding that he must take decisive action, just as his ancestors did when they faced their adversaries, Harry prepares to face the challenge head-on, determined to regain control of his life. When he went to work on Thursday morning, Harry forced himself to eat a hearty breakfast because he knew he wouldn't be eating lunch, and he hoped that his adversary would, which might slow him down. He paced the floor of his office, meticulously checking details, and he strategically placed a few things in the guest room, hoping that whether Deborah was waiting for her lover in the backyard or simply opened the front door and came back into the house, he would be able to make use of them. By midnight hours, he'd changed into jeans, a t-shirt, and sturdy running shoes. He double-checked his pockets for his mobile phone, his keys, his knuckles, his wallet, and before he left, he dialed Deborah's number from the phone on his desk to make sure that she could see his work number on the caller ID and know that he was actually in the office. It took Harry and Kelly 20 minutes to drive to the park before their lover's car arrived. Kelly dropped Harry off at home and he jogged down the street to his house, slipping into the backyard through the side door away from the garage and hiding behind a FIA bush. He anxiously checked the time on his silent phone. 1:45. Deborah appeared in the backyard in a bikini and headed for the back door, which was Harry's cue. Strategically leaving the side door slightly ajar, he went through the side door and used the key to go around to the front door, unlocking it and walking through the area where his wife's betrayal had been discovered a few days earlier. Harry quickly grabbed a cordless drill and some hardware tools from the spare bedroom and headed for the master bedroom. Wedging a small piece of wood between the door and the frame, his heart racing, he armed himself with brass knuckles and grabbed the video camera from the guest bedroom to prepare himself for what was about to happen. And despite the myriad of ways things could have gone awry, Harry remained calm and focused on executing his plan flawlessly. His knuckles were glowing as he stood in the guest room, camera in hand, listening intently to the sounds that were getting closer, the shaking of the sliding glass door accompanied by giggles and mumbles, Deborah's giggles intertwined with a low male growl evoking a mental image of her companion silently trailing behind. Harry strategically placed the camera in the master bedroom, making sure that it captured every single one of Denning's detail. Harry held his breath, tucking himself away from the door and preparing for what was about to happen as the couple indulged in their unrelenting passion. The minutes ticked by, their intimate exchanges confirming Harry's worst suspicions. Deborah's familiar words only fueled his resentment and strengthened his belief in her unresolved issues. For Harry, every moment that passed was agonizing, each one amplifying his seething anger, but he remained firm in his resolve, determined to face the betrayal head-on. He pushed the man away without hesitation and launched himself at him. Intruder Steve soon realized the gravity of the situation and prepared to confront Harry and Deborah. As Steve advances, Harry strategically steps back, lulling Steve into a false sense of security. Meanwhile, Deborah pleads with Harry to leave Steve alone, which reveals her duplicitous nature as she attempts to manipulate the situation so that Harry is indifferent to her pleas. Harry locks the door, trapping them both inside. Deborah's tone shifts from anger to despair as she realizes that she is outmatched in the face of Harry's wrath. Harry handcuffs Steve to the bed, where he demands that Deborah tell the truth, revealing the truth about the lies that she has told to justify her web of lies to justify her infidelity. Harry exposed her deception, revealing that he had known about her affair all along. Harry coldly announced his intention to end their marriage and take revenge on Deborah and Steve. Harry gathers his accomplice, Kelly, and orchestrates the final act of his revenge, and with cruel irony, they discuss Deborah and Steve's fate, contemplating the horrific punishments that will ensure their suffering. "I'm going to invoke our prenuptial agreement, which will certainly get him in trouble. If I find out he's cheating on me, he'll get nothing. I'll take him to the hospital and make up a story about an accident in the garage. He won't be able to refute it because he knows that if he cooperates I'll be able to break it off with him altogether, and maybe I will. As far as your mistress is concerned, she's a problem for you now. Have you got any ideas on how to deal with her?" Kelly asked. As for Deborah, her father was a very important part of her life, and I suspect that the history between them is not a simple one. Although I lack concrete evidence, even after the divorce I still have some leverage, like some revealing videos. Maybe that will keep her vindictiveness in check, so I'll let her get dressed, get in her car, and go lick her wounds somewhere. But Deborah, don't bother with ATMs or credit cards. They won't work for you. and you'll probably find a few bucks in your wallet, which is a quarter for your trouble. He deeply regrets his actions and realizes that they do not reflect his true self, comparing them to an act of cruelty during the war and vowing never to repeat them again. However, he felt no remorse for the injuries that Buddy had inflicted on Kelly. Kelly's insurance company covered the basic cost of Buddy's facial reconstruction, but refused to fund extensive reconstructive surgery after the breakup. She is haunted by memories of the events with Harry and Buddy, repressed by the predator's prey, dynamic, and despite occasional bouts of longing, Hal has no reciprocal feelings for Deborah. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story, and if you enjoyed it, please consider bookmarking and subscribing, and if you haven't already, please share your thoughts on the events in the comments below.